I love my wife and I want to spend the rest of my life with her. But that's not all that I am. And so or another analogy is putting all your eggs in one basket.
Welcome to episode number 14, guys. It's been a while, it's been a minute, but we are back. First of all, let me just say that we're heading into winter, and first, before I need to introduce you, I need to say we are celebrating our 1 year. Because we have 1 year we becoming as 1 years old, and I am so grateful for this. It's been a mad journey. I'm so grateful, but it's not about that. Happy birthday, do you want to sing? Happy. Okay. So yeah, it was one hectic journey, but I loved it. I've met so much different guests, and now we have another new guest, Charlie Alexander. Welcome to Become Him.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, how does it feel? We're 1 year old now. You're like on the side of the line. We like experience, low key.
It's weird. There's an expectation.
Yeah, because they like, you're the 1 year, you had to hear the 1 year episode.
I don't miss it.
Tell me, for those that don't know you, tell us a bit about you, where you from. You can give your birthdays, WhatsApp number. It's up to you. This is your time to shine. Tell us a bit about you.
I'm just Charlie. I grew up in Mitchell's Plain, moved to Grassy Park, married Lauren, who I met when I was 12, but then was some
Okay, I was like, you
roller coasters, and then eventually 2017 got married. So now it's been 3.5 years. Like last week was 3.5 years.
Yo.
So doing a bunch of stuff with church and ministry, young people, and then also with the organization called New Hope, who focuses on working with homeless people. And now some previously homeless, because we're staying in a house here in Wiesenberg, so that's been quite exciting.
Yo, now I feel like we like friends, because you just like to tell me a whole lot. Since 12 years old.
Since we were 12, she's a little bit older than me, a few months.
Okay.
But yeah, we met like on a Sunday school camp, like a combination of churches on the camp. And then yeah, she was obviously in love then already. I just took a bit longer to realize how in love she was, and that I was also in love with her.
Yeah, that's just quiet. I'm digging into that a bit later. That is actually a quiet. That is a. If I knew that, this episode would have gone this way. But you're not just saying you spoke about ministry and stuff like that. So when did it start? How did you like?
I mean, with my parents, fortunately, they were like active in the church, so there was always a going with, and then more of a like, what do I do? Where do I fit in? And so being involved with youth and that kind of thing. But then asking the question like, what does this mean for me? Because I can see that this means a lot for my mom and my dad's doing this kind of thing, but where do I fit in? So also having an older brother. Being actively involved in youth and that kind of thing. And then I realized like there's a scripture in John 1:12, I think, to all who believe we have the right to be children of God. Not of like a natural vibe, but and so I think that kind of kicked off a different journey, but that wasn't the where I am now. It took other steps and other falling down and to get to this part of the journey. Don't feel like I've made it or anything like that. Struggle every day, but we keep going.
Yo, it's like your whole family just called, like everybody just having a call. But that's really amazing. Because like now, and especially like now, we can see that helping homeless people, it's very loud. It wasn't that loud. Like soup kitchens is like everywhere. People, I mean, even like I spoke to you earlier and I say like you're one of 3 people that I know that's actively doing this, and it was never like we never knew about anything like this. Now you can literally go around everywhere. You can you can just join there. Oh, it's easier now for me to connect a homeless person to somebody that is attached to the organization. But it was back then, and like it's just like no. What do you think got us to this point, like where we are so open about helping? Because and it was sad to say that a lot of people we just used to pause. And I will say this, because I will not speak for other religions, but I will say from the church, it was just like, it's their problem.
Yeah.
But we became very loud about helping now. What do you think you would say was the one thing that triggered that?
I think for too long, we've kind of compartmentalized things. And so church is the thing we do on a Sunday. But we've slowly but surely, fortunately, moved away from that. And even, I think, COVID's even helped us to ask, like, what is church actually? Because now we can't do this thing where we have this massive time together on a Sunday morning or Sunday night, whenever. But people are asking, what is church and who is the church? And so, for me, that's kind of part of the question that then leads to us seeing people being in spaces where different people are coming together, and there's this kind of more of an inclusive vibe happening, which goes against a lot of like old church. When I say old, then I mean like our thinking that we need to wear a suit and a tie. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not going to wear a suit and a tie for an hour and then change afterwards. I'm just going to go as I am, because I believe that that's okay. And yes, I respect people who do choose to wear church clothes, but that's maybe a symptom of the bigger problem or the deeper problem, to say that this is what you need to do. And so if I think about like even ending up here in Muizenberg, at our church we were doing a Thursday night dinner, which was kind of trying to break away from the soup kitchen idea of standing in a queue and then being fed, but coming inside, sitting down at the table with people, volunteers, who would then engage in conversation to ask like, how are you doing? And then like someone just saying like, we know that we all come from different situations. Most of the people that were at the dinner were people who were living on the street, and maybe having some kind of substance use disorder. And so you really found anyone there. And then we kind of, when COVID started, we couldn't have the dinner because now you can't sit together at the table.
Yes.
Especially if we have 100 people in the hall together. And so we asked the question, what's next? Because there were relationships that formed at those tables. We then went out, a social worker and another guy went out into the area to find those people and say, look, we're gonna host some people at the church. We're gonna shift things around to make it comfortable and that kind of thing. But it's level 5, so you can't go anywhere. And so the invitation was for both staying there, but also this idea of them needing to be sober. And then a few guys took on the challenge. And I say take on the challenge because now you go from like you can go wherever you want to, wherever your feet can carry you, to like being stuck in this place. And so for some of the guys it was I think for all of the guys it was hard, and for some guys it was too hard. So we had guys who ran away. One guy took a laptop with him, that kind of thing.
Maybe I ran and just the haak vast.
And so yeah, then the levels dropped a bit, and we asked like, what's next? So yes, for that time the war was okay. We could make do with it, but actually like let's find these guys a space where they can thrive and really regain that dignity that they've lost all these years. And so we moved into our house here in Muizenberg, 1st of September last year. And yeah, there's 10 guys living in the house, and Lauren and myself, we in the like flatlet. And so we try and serve them as the living supervisors. And then there's other staff members and that kind of thing. But I think that idea of the space at the church that people can be invited into, no matter what. So some guys are coming in there, they're not sober. They've had like bad days, bad weeks, bad years. And they're using what they can just to survive. And so for me, that's the picture of anyone is welcome when you think of like the church.
I think you're saying that, and we would then think that a lot of these people would have been so far if we have just started so early in life, because we would feed people and then they would go back and they would be exactly the same. My friend Finnes, he used to say that he's like, sometimes these guys don't want a coin. Sometimes they just want you to ask them how are you guys doing or how it is. And I'm thinking in that case it will be one of that factors where now you're sitting with John, you're feeding John, and John is going back to his old habits. But now because you're sitting with me and you ask me how you're doing, what's up, how can I actually, you don't know that there is a podcast called Becoming that's locked up in him, or there's an artist, or there's a singer, there's a rapper. And now spending these times, like, we are now not just healing the person like outwardly, like, you know, looking good, but you're actually uprooting like the brokenness, the passing. Because now I've learned, one guy, we woke up one night and then there was this guy just laying in our yard, and my dad, being my dad, was like, and mom was like, no, let him come in. And we sat and my mom made him some, and then he spoke and I was like, for the eye, look at this guy just come sitting in our yard, and when he spoke his story, he's like, yes, no one, parents died, everybody, he just had his grandma also just spoke, and I was like, to the eyes it will just be like, this guy's thinking and he's rude but that is their way of surviving, because they need that out. You can't be like speaking very nicely out on the road, you need to be rough. And I'm thinking now, allowing them to be in the house and taking care, you can literally get rid of that low self-esteem, that of actually being a man, and also being spending time with friends, and they had a lot of ladies again that side. But I must think it might be much more tough because guys don't talk about feelings.
It is, and you don't easily recognize it unless you're like really listening and watching. And then there are some days where you can see the signs are showing up, like this frustration, or like, I just need to get out of this place, even if it's just for a day. Like, and it's hard because we don't always have enough resources or the time or people to get engaged with the guys.
Look here, you not just said about that now, you're having guys, different people that you have to sit with, and different emotions, different attitudes, different everything. You don't know where they're from, you don't know exactly what their motive is to be. Like, how do you go from, and I don't know, you haven't studied for this? Have you studied for this?
Not me personally.
Yeah.
So we've got the social worker and the counselor, the counselor, and so they kind of do case by case.
Okay.
But then outside of that, it's mainly just holding the space, making sure guys are safe. We do a bunch of different things. So their program is designed between 9 and 3 during the day. So they're doing different stuff, and then in addition to that, we got like a community meeting on a Monday. We have Bible study this evening, and so some guys are involved in that program. Bible study is not compulsory. Some guys are involved in that program, and then other guys one guy's with U-Turn. Another guy is busy with social auxiliary work course. And so he's doing his practical with streetscapes in town. And another guy just started working, like doing an interview kind of thing, but in Weinberg, at the carpentry place. And so there are some really good outlets for the guys. But in terms of like being equipped to do certain things, like I'm definitely, I wouldn't call myself qualified. I think for me it's mostly been the guys are beneficiaries of the program and the organization, but I've benefited from being in their company.
Wow.
Like learning like to be resilient, to persevere, to really be okay with like this is out of my control. Like because certain things are you don't get to say like what you're gonna eat, for example. Or you always the one like looking for help. And so like how do you go through life being in that position for so long? And the guys just like they get up every day. And some days some of the guys struggle, and other days like guys are up at 6 in the morning because they need to go, they need to get busy and do their thing.
What I want to say is that it must be draining to always be, because I think it will be much easier to be a part of something. Because if you can tell me, John, don't you want to come Tuesday, you want to do a program there? It's cool, it's just on a Tuesday. But to be there every single day, and you need to know what's going to happen on Monday, what they're going to eat Monday afternoon, what is for breakfast. Like you need to do that. It must be mentally, spiritually draining, because you also need to make sure that they, like you say, Bible studies, things like that. What would you say you use to just recoup yourself back to like, okay, Charlie, it's you now. What do you use for you?
Probably a mixture of things. I know, like last year, because we started the house in September, and because of lockdown, like I was like really out of shape. I'm still overweight because we didn't have football, and then I started trying to run again, and I stuck.
Walking is fine.
No, for sure. So now I'm walking and running, but then I picked up cycling with a bunch of guys. And so that's one of the things. But then another thing is like Lauren and myself, we've been engaged with sung worship for some time.
Okay.
So being like doing that with a bunch of other worship leaders from a group of churches, and doing a once a month worship night, which is like has been mostly online, but now in person and online.
Okay.
And I think that's been an energizing space. But I do think also like having to kind of do that switching on and switching off, because I've been quite strict with like if I'm not on duty, like don't bother me. And sometimes in the beginning it was hard for some of the guys because then they come to you and I'm like, oh, sorry man, I'm not on duty. And then the guy starts telling his story. I'm like, sorry man. And it's hard because like he's coming to you, so there's something that he feels is important, but you have to put in those boundaries to say like there is someone else on duty. I'll be on duty later or tomorrow, and I'm okay with having this conversation. But for my own like sanity, and I need to think about the long-term goal and just being here. Like I just can't talk to you right now, so I don't say all of those things. But I'm thinking it, and I'm like, then I need to be okay with it. And some days it is hard. Some of the guys we have better relationships with, just because there's more things in common. There's the language that we speak is similar, and so those are kind of things you don't really want to say, no, I'm not going to engage too much with this one and not with that one. And then there's other times where it's like everyone's together and we're praying or something.
I'm glad that you working with males and there's males that listen to this episode, and these are not just males that were born. No one was born on the street. Nobody was like, one day I just want to go on the street because that is life. Some of the people come out of, they were married, some of the people are well educated, some of them are really gifted, but something happened. What would you say to our normal guys that, the average John that is, you have his wife there, and like you say, you heard stories where they were married and they lived happy, and then the wife passed on, and then just everything went downhill. What would you say to the normal John to prevent that from, what would you say, like a kid that you'll be like, yo John, make sure that you take care of this, mental health, this. What would you say, with the experience that you have heard, I'm sorry, what would you tell John?
I think definitely like a holistic approach. when I say holistic, like, don't just be stuck on one thing. Yes, I love my wife and I want to spend the rest of my life with her, but that's not all that I am. And so or another analogy is putting all your eggs in one basket, not in terms of being married.
Yes.
But there's other things that gives me energy and gives me life. So whether it's the friendships that I have, just a simple thing like cycling. Like I need to do that at least once a week. Otherwise, I feel like something's wrong. And so listening to yourself and surrounding yourself with people that can say like bruh, actually you've been picking up weight. And I can feel it, but I respect the guy, a friend, to say that to me and be like shocked, man. And then I think for me, like, I know for different guys it's different, but really like reading at least some text every day. I've been trying to just read a bit of the gospel every day. And some days it happens immediately when I wake up, and other days I have to remember, like, actually, like, you need to go and do this. And so, yeah, like, and I don't want to say finding a balance, because now you wanna play that game.
Yes.
It's actually like blending things together and being aware that it's not just one thing, or you're not just this person. And I think the thing about being, I don't want to say, I know the word accountable gets used often, like, and people make a big deal about it. But it's something that's simple, man. Like to say, like how is your marriage? Like how is it with the girl that you're dating? Like, what's your plan? Like, do you have a plan? Because if you don't have a plan, then don't date them.
Yeah.
Because you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with myself and Lauren, something that we've done now recently is we've decided, like, at least once every 2 weeks now, we'll take turns and basically set up like a dating situation.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be super fancy. So I took the turn to organize date night. And just kept it simple, because we already had supper. Made a fire outside, carried the couch outside.
Come on now.
Put on like because there's a bigger computer screen, so just played a favorite movie with some snacks by the fire. And then, yeah, just like, she appreciated that. I also enjoyed it, because there's liquor outside. But I think it's not, we didn't spend like R1,000 or hundreds of rands even. But it was time that we both could appreciate together. And those are I think the things that we need to do. And that's whether it's your wife or your girlfriend, if you want to say. Because otherwise we would probably just have watched the series, which is not a lot different.
But just the atmosphere.
Yeah, like setting the scene and feeling like, especially now during COVID, because you can feel like you're stuck in the house or wherever you're living. And sometimes it's we don't live in the best of circumstances. But that shouldn't necessarily mean that we can't like make it special. And so whether it's sitting outside or sitting in a room, but just making some effort, lighting a few candles or.
Yeah, not just necessarily for ESCOM, but before actually going out and light the candles. And ESCOM will maybe, help you guys create a better atmosphere, putting everything over. But I think you're not saying that also, and I was also looking at the one thing, especially like now, like this is the stuff that you are saying, is to give this. Not saying that you are much older, but just giving and passing this on so that we know our fathers didn't do this. Our fathers are like, I'm married, newspaper, I'm there, I'm paying the bills, that's it. But literally having this and passing it on to other people that's actually listening. And what I want to say, the one important thing that I'm personally thinking is that for our guys to know that your car's not gonna always be there, the house is not always gonna be there, your finance is not always gonna be 100. But the one thing that you need to keep your balance is also like to tell people, I'm not feeling okay today.
Definitely.
Like having that safe space, and I mean you guys are doing that now, because the stuff that if you guys were not there, I think Calvin will always ask me this, and he will say that, John, just always make sure that whatever you're doing, ask yourself, if that thing is not there, what will be missing in the world?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if you guys are not there, you would have been guys that are still even worse off emotionally. They would have been maybe rude or even worse. But now, because you guys are there, they could actually say, this is how I feel. And actually come to him and not looking like a Moem and like, yo, what the matter? But you guys are actually creating a space for them to actually speak. And I think that is going to help them not only get out of it but stay out of that. What would you tell your kids or the younger you about where you are right now? Obviously stuff that you have faced and stuff that you have like challenged you, but what would you tell yourself, the younger you, to get to this? But I know myself, I was really like panicking out there. I was like, but I relax, it's gonna be okay. What would you tell yourself, or the younger, or your children, to be like, you know what, this is something I would like to give you guys?
I think that it's this idea of like goodness and being good. There's a lady, Lisa Sharon Harper, that writes this book, The Very Good Gospel, and she explains this idea of goodness not being me being good on my own, but there being goodness that exists between us. Because what does it benefit the world if I'm good on my own? And so that would definitely be a thing for kids or for the younger me. Like, be good to the people around you, because we all created in God's image, and so that's important, and it's something that we've taken for granted. And so for me, being with these guys, like, that's so important. And if I don't posture myself in a way that I see the goodness of God in them, the image of God in them, then I'm going to lose out. And we've been losing out because we've put a stigma on homeless people for so long. And it's crazy because even, this maybe goes off track a bit, but even the word like homeless is quite problematic for me personally. I understand that it's helpful so we can understand that people don't have a home.
Yes.
But when if you ask these guys, like, where is home for you, then they'll tell you that's where home is, whether it's Ops or Mowbray. And we find that there's people who are much better off, whether it's wealth or resources or whatever the case may be, and they're very unhappy. And so there's things that we need to find value and importance in that we've almost lost because of the amount of TV we're exposed to or the things that we follow and pursue. And then we miss these things. So definitely being good to other people. And experiencing that goodness with other people.
Unfortunately, all good things come to an end, and we are drawing to end this episode. But there's two things that I want you to do for me. Is like, what would you say is one of your quotes that you live by? Maybe it's the scripture, something that you read to yourself. What is one of the stuff that you live by, that you know, look here, if anything, I can just tell myself this thing, and you cup on, so to say.
I think it's definitely that Genesis 1, 26 and 27, being created in the image of God, and really embodying that for myself and for other people, because like, even, and especially during this time of COVID, where people are dying because of the virus, but even dying because of other things, and so really valuing that. And knowing that there's a God who's created me and the rest of the world in a way that invites us to learn more about who God is. And so for me, that's there's obviously other text and there's other stories and quotes that are important. But for me, right now in this season, that's the one that's really a standout for us to live in a way that expresses that goodness.
And for someone that say I'm listening to this episode and I'm like, I know another guy that I would love to help. Maybe I'm driving to Weinberg and there's always just one guy that I would like to help. I know somebody like that, or somebody's like, I've got some money laying around, I would like to help. Where can people get hold of you and how can they connect with you?
So through newhope.org, newhopesa.org, definitely there's always a space where you can give and contribute financially, especially. But I think in terms of people, it's really getting to know people and getting to a point where you can ask, like, what is it that you need? What is it that you even think you need? Because some people want certain help, and it's actually important to honor that as well. So this journey that we went on with these guys that are currently in the house, not everyone's made it through the pandemic with us. Some guys have left because it's just not what they want or maybe what they're even ready for. And so we really need to do things out of relationship and listening to people so that we can actually know and honor each other.
So guys, let's say, like the movie says, show me the money. So yes, I do think that we need to, that's why I would like to use the platform to always just get people to, it's easy for us to go to the movies and you've spent, in a year's time you spend probably like 15,000 on fast food and stuff like that, where you can literally invest it in something as good like that. And so guys, like hook up for those that are well connected, or even if you don't know, you don't have it, somebody you do have, like, let us do this, let us save more males off the streets. I think not just because let's live, but there's a lot of organizations that help women, and it's like you probably one out of how much organizations that just focus on males. So I enjoyed this episode. I enjoy listening, and I would like to connect more and just everything of the best for the journey forward. And I know we're gonna have you back. This is so good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm John Davids, and we are out of here.